Hello and welcome. Well, in about 40 hours or so from now, Arun Jaitley will stand up to deliver what could be one of his most crucial budgets yet. It's crucial because it follows demonetization and all that has happened as a result of that. So, A, repairing some of the damage of demonetization and building on the benefits of it. That's presumably something he'll try and do. And then, of course, GST is just around the corner, and that has its own significance. So, it's going to be a crucial budget. And all we can do at this stage is start speculating as to what perhaps he is going to say, and also give our own suggestions as to what he should say, what we certainly hope he should say. So we have got four of the top experts we can think of who've really studied the Indian economy in great length, and each of them is going to give us, in a minute each, what would be the budget speech that they would deliver. Because every budget at the end of the day, yes, it continues for an hour and a half or thereabouts, but there are those 2 or 3 lines in every budget that eventually is what that budget is remembered for. It can be good or it could be bad. Think retrospective tax, for example. So what is that 1 or 2 lines that we hope the finance minister is going to say? That's what we're going to ask everyone here to speak. So Gurcharan Das, former CEO of Procter & Gamble, written any number of books on India and the growth story. So you're going to be on perhaps first to tell us what you think, what you are hoping the budget speech should be. Mukesh Bhutani, Senior Partner, BMR and Associates, perhaps the top tax expert we have in the country today. Sunil Khan Munjal, wonderful and a pleasure to have you with us to tell us what you think India Inc. in particular is going to be hoping for. Naina Lal Kidwai, being one of the country's top bankers, also former President FICCI. So the 4 of you are on. Each of you is going to be Finance Minister for 1 minute each to tell us what are the 2 or 3 items that you would put into the budget, and then we can perhaps get down to discussing what we think is likely to be there in the budget. So who wants to go first? Gurcharan Das, why don't you go first? Now, if you were the Finance Minister day after tomorrow, what would be those 2 or 3 lines that you would put into the budget?
Well, I would tell the people that I remain an aspirational leader of the country, and I'm not going to become populist because of the bungle of demonetization, and therefore I would stay the course. The last 2.5 years the economy has been reasonably well managed. The last budget was a very good one, and this one we have to do what we have been doing so far, which is the priority is to create jobs.
Okay, create jobs, one.
And to create jobs, I would do it through infrastructure spending, logistics improvement, ease of doing business, implementing like the textile package and so on.
Okay. So
then I would say that jobs are going to take time. And so in the meantime, we have to improve the productivity of agriculture. Okay. And the best thing we are doing there is trying to actually end the APMC Raj by having ENAMs, which is the National Agricultural Market. This is a big move. Most people are not aware of it. Okay. And I would keep doing that. I would also, in the farm area, have a predictable export-import policy, unlike the stop and start policy that we have today. And I would get over this unscientific bias against GMO, which is a major, which could produce a second green revolution.
Okay, so proposal 1 is something for jobs. I mean, now 1 set of proposals for job, 1 set for farm and agriculture.
And on tax, I would do very simply, I would say we have a commitment we have made to reduce the corporate tax rate by 1% a year, and we should keep reducing it 1% until we reach the level of our competitor nations. I would move the tax rates, indirect tax rates, to the GST rate, and I would not give a higher exemption. I mean, I would, the tax-free exemption for
you wouldn't raise it so that don't allow people to get out of the tax
net. Out of the tax net, but I would, what I would do is protect the, I would actually stretch out the slabs. So actually
stretch the slabs out, but don't increase it.
And finally, what much talked about universal basic income scheme, I would not do it. I would not do it until 1, the infrastructure is ready to do it, and second, until all the subsidies are scrapped. Then I would do it.
All right, that is the the Gurcharan Das Budget 2017. Each of you are going to get your own chance, but any of you have a strong take on what he's just said, something which you violently agree or disagree with? Sunil, Naina, either of you? Do you strongly agree or strongly disagree with something that Gurcharan said?
Yeah.
Naina?
Well, I agree with most of the stuff he said. Actually, he's covered a very wide canvas. Naina, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. Naina, why don't you start?
No, that's... Yeah. So, the one thing Gurcharan didn't touch on, but which I would like to table is the issue of the fisc. Should the finance minister stay the course for the 3%, which is a very tough target and a very tough ask?
Naina, you can put that in when you're reading your own budget speech.
Buying a little leeway. All right.
You can put that in when you're coming with your budget speech, which follows in 2 minutes or so from now.
Yeah.
But any other things that, how would you rate what he said? Anything you disagree with?
I would pretty much agree with a lot of what Gurcharan has said. I think some of the detail on agriculture maybe won't find its way in the budget, but I don't disagree with the points that he's made there.
Okay, fine. Sunil?
So broadly agree with what he's saying, except two issues. One, I think the universal income has got to be tried in a small sample right now to figure out what it will take to roll this out across the country. And it is not something which is an addition to other subsidies and support system. It is a replacement for them. We now have most of the machinery required to actually put this in place. You made 250 new accounts operable last year. 99% Indians have an Aadhaar card. You have a digital identity being put in place. You have something called the India Stack, which is the most sophisticated system ever rolled out in any country in the world, on which can allow your education services, your payment systems, your security system, your healthcare system, all can ride on the India Stack.
Okay.
So we are perfectly primed to try something of this nature right now. I would also, however, focus on indirect taxes, because at this moment, you need to have a quick fix as well for consumption to come back into the system, to start using the underutilized capacity that exists today in the system, so that industry can go back to growing and investing in new capacity. So indirect taxes need attention at this moment. We'll probably need to lower them, and we've seen the impact of that twice. It has been done twice earlier in the last 10 years, and both times the impact was almost immediate. You could see consumption start to go up.
Okay, fine. So that's some of the takes on that, and I'm going to get you in then, Gurcharan, now to tell everyone else. But Mukesh, why don't I go to you next? If you were to deliver this speech day after tomorrow, and I am going to ask you, I know you're a tax expert, you're going to probably have lots of fine print, but the big headlines on what you would like to say on taxation in particular, if you were the finance minister day after?
So I think clearly a reduction in tax rates, because
reduction in tax rates. Why?
For individuals, it's going to result in higher disposable income, which is going to propel demand, and for corporates, improvement in their bottom line, because the corporates have been now for the third consecutive year experiencing dilution of the net margins as a result of either increase in input cost or inability to be able to pass on the inflationary increases to the customers. I also feel that on the support side, the small scale and the medium scale industries and industries that are particularly stressed, for example, the leather industry or the textile industry, there would be an element of package that the government will work at, because bear in mind that these industries traditionally have not just been contributing towards the growth, but also contribute towards the employment. Okay. And the employability challenge is a real one for the government that's today. And the reason this is important is because there is only so much that the government can do by way of propelling investment and employment in the public sector. So I think the government needs to do a whole lot.
Reduce tax and worry about some of these industries and therefore get pushing the jobs, the same job theme that he's talking about, which a lot of people are saying is really the big crux that comes in. Any third item that you would do?
On the fiscal deficit side, I would just, I agree with Gurcharan that he should not in any way try and, move away from the target that he set out for himself, because that's critical for him to be able to stick to the target. though I know that the FRBM panel is going to give him the flexibility.
So let me just put a direct question to you then on that, and then I'm going to go to Naina on that as well. Should he be slightly aggressive? Because with demonetization and the possibility of this big bonanza that has come, not just necessarily because the notes were destroyed, because the notes weren't destroyed, most of them were not destroyed, they weren't retendered.
Correct.
But it is possible a lot of money will be found as a result of amnesty schemes and what have you. So it is possible that there will be a tax receipt bonanza after demonetization.
Sure.
GST also could have a similar impact. So if you were him, would you be tempted to be a bit more aggressive when it came to the fisc?
I won't even be aggressive. I'll take calculated risk. And that
you would take calculated risk.
And the calculated risk is that you really see personal tax collections very high this year, partly because of the IDS. But you will see now more taxpayers coming into the tax net. You will see a far greater individual tax compliant. So he's going to experience this buoyancy in tax collection even for 17-18, and hence I say it's a calculated risk for him.
Okay, calculated risk that you can bet on buoyancy in taxes thanks to demonetization and its aftermath. All right, that's a real possibility. Naina, why don't you go? Naina, why don't you go next? You're finance minister tomorrow. What are the 3 lines that you would use in your speech?
Well, let me start by saying I'm glad I'm not, because it's a pretty tough position to be in given the high expectation levels that have been set and the discussions as we're clearly hearing.
But it's not a bad time to do it. You've got demonetization, you may have some cushion in your hands, so, you know.
Yeah, but what you do have is a pretty tough external environment. You have oil prices going up, so the leeway we've had over the last year or two not looking as comfortable. And you don't have exports there to help you at all. And you do have the shock from the demonetization and what it's done to the economy. But having said that, you know, on the fisc, I disagree a bit with what Mukesh just said, in that I would really buy myself that leeway for some of the reasons that he said, which is knowing that the tax collection is up and likely to stay buoyant next year for the reasons he just stated, really buy myself a little more time now, because GST in particular, if it kicks in July 1st, as we're all hoping, will require the centre initially to support the states. In the long run, GST will definitely lead to income generation at a higher level at the states. But for the next 6 to 8 months, as it kicks in, the centre is going to have to make up a deficit, quite likely.
So,
and
therefore, Naina, you would be on the fiscal side, you would continue to be prudent, you wouldn't be too lax, you would be tough on the fiscal deficit. Is that what you're saying? That's your first major item?
No, I would say, you know, instead of shooting for 3, maybe allow for leeway at 3.2, 3.3.
Okay, fine.
So that, and use that play of the 0.3 specifically for the GST makeup as is likely to be required. So buy myself a little more leeway than sticking to the 3.
Okay, fair enough.
The second area I would look at, and the second would be on really, again, keeping that push on infrastructure spend, capital spend, which this government did really well in the initial stages. Make sure that that expenditure, which in turn helps in terms of the multiplier effect and jobs, kicks in. And maybe push affordable housing as well, because housing is a very key part of that spend, and it enables the kick-starting of the rest of the economy. And in affordable housing, if governments at the state level can sequester land in order to provide that housing, we will again see the spin-off benefits into industries which feed into housing. And this becomes important given that the real estate market has clearly suffered because of demonetization.
Third?
A third area is really everything. The third area would be everything to look at increasing consumption and therefore putting money in the hands of people. So I would agree with what Gurcharan, what Mukesh, what Sunil have said, which is, yes, let's just put more money into people's hands by reducing the tax rates. And do that by increasing the slabs. So not by reducing the number of people in the net, but really increase the slabs and reduce the rates therein. So that would be the whole sort of let's create consumption, let's create demand into the markets through this. And the fourth area, which I think has been covered, is on jobs and therefore employment therein. I would just add that while I would look at leather and textiles and, you know, the labor-intensive industries and support the SMEs, MSMEs, all with a view to jobs, to also push on the entrepreneurship agenda, because that too becomes a big job generator.